But if I'm trying to be clear with somebody else, they might not be understanding that same thing.
Or you ever like this? I do this sometimes. Like, I'm gonna explain this to you. I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the world. If I understand, if I get it, why in the world can you not get it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What's
How
going
do I
on here?
have to communicate in
Yeah,
a way
what's
for
going
it to
on?
make
Yeah,
sense
what's
to
going on
you,
here. Yeah.
right? Yeah, and I think, it's funny because when you do find the good people, I think there is a way for you to find a way to work with them, right? Like we built a really cool team over at Good Planet Foods, and a lot of those people, they have really good work ethic, they have really good standards, and if there's a way that I can find to work with them again, I would, because we already built that relationship and that trust, and I think that's another aspect to these relationships, right? Trust. If I can't trust you to do something or to hit a certain standard, then we're not in sync. And how do we approach that and have a conversation around it versus just cutting somebody off and being very passive?
So there's a term out there, I think it's called iron sharpens iron, right?
Mm.
Which is good if both people are made of iron, right? But if like you're made of iron, like suppose I work for you,
Yeah.
you're made of iron, but I'm made of freaking aluminum foil, right? Like, I mean, how does that work, right? Because that's going to destroy me and
Yeah.
shut me off. Like, how do you deal with that?
I think honestly it almost goes all the way back to training, right? So I worked a lot in doing interviews with people, and you've probably touched this too, being in the HR side of things, right? Talent acquisition. How do you find a good fit for someone? And having those conversations of, okay, is culture really important? Is pay really important? Is having a boss that understands you and what motivates you important? And having those early conversations, I think, is really important because you have to get on the same page. And there were a few times where I did talent conversations and interviews, and there were times where I had actually culture fit interviews. And it was like, I knew what the culture was like here. Now, how do I know this person will fit in really well, right? And I have to come up with questions of like, do you like to, if you were at work and, we were going to do a party, would you be okay with that party, right? Trying to figure out what is that culture. And I think when you start to have those conversations and break those barriers down, you start to figure that out. Are you iron? Are you foil? Are you steel? What are you made out of, and what's going to keep you going? Like you said at the beginning, right? What's that driving aspect for you?
And so next, define operational excellence.
Ooh, do I have a minimum like word or sentence
No,
on this?
no.
Because
Talk forever you want to.
operational excellence. If I were to define operational excellence, I think it would really be, it would revolve around how easily can you put a new piece to the machine and have it run seamlessly. Like, in basic terms, that's how I would put it. To break it down, I would dive in much deeper, right? What is that piece we're adding? Are we adding it at the beginning of the machine, the middle of the machine, towards the end of the machine? And the reason I say machine is because I do find, and a lot of the books that I'm reading describe certain ways that we function as a machine, right? A business can be a machine, a game can be in a machine, and there are ways that you have to jump in to make that final product, that final good, and whether that is winning a game, whether that's actually a product that comes out of it, or growth. I think a machine is a really good way to define that, and I think it's also easy to define operations as a machine itself. And so I think just being able to throw a piece in that big puzzle and having it work seamlessly is where you get excellence.
So when you're looking at companies, and we're talking about the M&A process, like how you take over companies or acquire them, how do you tell like how do you judge like, the company's like organizational leadership?
Mm, there's actually quite a few ways to do that. And sometimes you can't always do it in one or two conversations or meetings. Like what Spencer and I like to do at Prospera, we actually like to go visit. So if it's not a local business, right? How can we meet this person, the owner or owners in person? How can we see, like, if they do have a physical location, an office, a plant of sorts? Like, how do we come see it really in function? And so, in doing that, we can kind of see what these drivers are, right? If it is a management team in place, we can see how they communicate together. Maybe a problem popped up during the visit. Are they addressing it right then and there, or are they saying, hey, this popped up, let's circle back on it once we've done doing the tour with Spencer and Bianca. And I think when you're there, it makes it, you can either see barriers pop up, or you'll see like certain, like, I want to give an example actually. So we went and did an on-site visit not too long ago, and we got to meet with the owner, their COO, and their like, I guess you would call them like their acting CFO accountant. And they'd always been transparent. And they were very transparent when we were there with them. They had a conversation about the next visit that was coming on site. They had a customer coming to their location, and it was just really nice to be like, oh, they haven't just been transparent over email or text or some of our visual, Zoom calls. They're doing it right here in front of us. Like, we can understand the language and how they work together. And so knowing that a value for us is transparency, and that they have kind of that same value, was really rewarding for us to be like, we had a theory, it was proved out, and we can continue to have these conversations knowing that they value transparency as well.
And you also talk to employees. A lot of times employees have a very different perspective on the business than the people in charge.
Yeah, it kind of depends where we're at in the process. So if it's still very early on, unless they're an employee that does a lot with them, or an employee that is responsible for certain things, we will talk to them and kind of get a feel for it. Like, hey, what do you think? Or what are you looking forward to seeing happen with the business? Pros and cons and everything like that. And usually the owners have been pretty open to them having that conversation, which is, again, another value of them being transparent with us. But it really just depends. Once we go really deep into it, so full on due diligence phase, that's where it gets interesting, because you do want to understand, that they're not just showing face, and that we can get to, the truth. How do you feel working here? Do you see yourself doing a different position? Are you happy in this role? Are you feeling like you want to do more? Or are you doing too much? And really start digging into it. But that's definitely later.
So how do you deal with this? And maybe this hasn't come in yet, but suppose you're about to acquire a company, and the CEO owner lets out, hey, I'm making all these numbers up. Suppose you acquire a company, we'll say, for $10 million. And the person in charge, the CEO, says, for this $10 million, you've taken over tomorrow, I'm firing all my employees the day before and giving them nothing, right? Like, basically fuck them over, right? Yeah. Are you like, okay, I'm not doing this deal because I can't deal with a person like this? Or you're like, this is between this CEO and the employees, I'm out of it until I take it over?
Yes, so that's why we have a legal team. Because as we're drafting some of the documents, specifically at the very end, it would be a purchase and sale agreement. We're trying to make sure that certain clauses or reps and warranties are in place to say, if something changed immediately, like if we started tomorrow and none of the employees showed up, that there would be something that says there's an action to take because of this, right? Now, what that action is can vary on a huge scale. But it would depend on what did we agree to during the negotiations. So it would be very different depending on the situation, and it would be unfortunate if someone had a situation for us to deal with, because that wouldn't be fun.
So during due diligence, what's been like the craziest thing you found, like almost an illegal thing? Has there been like a situation you do due diligence, you found out, man, this company's selling drugs on the side, or they're money laundering, there's something off the wall and it's saying, right?
It's funny that you say that, because there was an aviation company we were looking at, and we had questions from people that we knew where they're like, could you smuggle with those planes? And I mean, we're looking at it and looking at the plane, and we're like, I mean, you could, it'd fit, it'd be just fine. But we didn't find anything specific to that.
Okay.
But there have been, I wouldn't say it was like lying or,
maybe like bad financials they weren't transparent about.
Stuff they may have missed themselves to bring up, and it was like, oh yeah, we didn't tell you, and it was like, what do you mean you got sued for X amount, and it was just, off the shoulder, and we're like, okay, well,
that's not that's not a big deal.
Probably send us some kind of like, do you have a report? Is it final? What came of it? And so it is interesting when you get to something bigger like that. And some of the deals that we're looking at, they are a little bit bigger, so there is more to dig through. There is, issues that can pop up, and I guess it's all about having the right people to really find those little things.
Yeah,
Little big
yeah. Like I
things.
said, some people are like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, no, that's a big fucking deal. Like,
It's still worth the amount I gave you.
yeah,
You should still pay $10 million for the business.
I know. And what's your process for making sure everyone collaborates?